and welcome back to Relocate Guru, the platform to help you feel at home and make moving easier no matter where you go to. Today I'm really excited that I'm joined with Sasha Coyle, who is an expat teacher who's moved from Ireland to the Middle East, and has been there for 7 years. And she's on a mission to help empower other teachers to move abroad and to have a great experience in doing so and to make the most of it. So welcome so much, Sasha, for coming and joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. Delighted to be here.
It's fantastic. So can you give us a bit more insight of what inspired you to leave Ireland to travel abroad and start a new life?
Yeah, of course. Well, like you said, I'm the founder of Empowering Expat Teachers, and the reason why I left, which I think is the reason for many expat teachers, was due to the lack of job security in my home country, and the low salary. Sometimes it was hard to save on a teaching salary, and the huge amount of paperwork that sometimes sort of took away from the actual teaching and spending time with the students, and you just be consumed by admin. So, unless you can, I'm sure if you look on TES or any of those websites, you see that teachers are finding it quite stressful back in Ireland and the UK. I'm also an avid traveller, and I wanted to be somewhere that was central, that I could easily go to explore the Middle East, go to Asia, and I love the sun. So I really wanted somewhere, I'm Irish, so we don't see a lot of the sun, and I really wanted to go somewhere where there was lots of sunshine, great weather, good lifestyle, near the sea. So all those factors sort of made me decide, I want to become an expat teacher. I want to be able to travel the world and teach and experience different cultures and be able to save money as well.
So what was that process like of relocating? What was there a specific trigger, or is it just like a culmination of factors?
I did my NQT, my newly qualified teacher. I trained in the UK. I did my newly qualified teacher in the UK, and I then went traveling around Argentina for 3 months, and I had such a fantastic time backpacking. I speaking Spanish, meeting new people, and then I came back sort of unexpectedly, and I did some cover work, some supply work in Ireland. And even though I enjoyed being back in the classroom, and it was a really great secondary school, it made me realize I'm not ready to come home, settle down, take the job, be there for the rest of my life, buy a house. I just wasn't ready. And I thought, I want to be in a position where I can still go traveling and still save, but still live a good lifestyle. So I decided to apply abroad, and I'd never heard, I went to Qatar first of all. I got a job there, and I was there for 4 years, and I loved it, but I actually never heard of Qatar until I moved there. So that was really quite interesting. I had heard of Saudi and, Dubai. So yeah, decided to move there. And from then I went back home to London to do my master's for a year and realized I still wasn't ready to settle down into normal life. So I came back out now to Dubai, and I've been here. This is my 3rd year in Dubai.
So that's really interesting. And so Sasha has built her platform to help other expat teachers go through the process and make that easier. So today she's going to share with us some of her best tips. If you're considering that the expat lifestyles for you, what you need to do in advance to make sure that you have an amazing experience as well. So we're going to dive straight in and really get it into the nuts and bolts of how you actually do this. So if you have any questions at all, pop them in the comments, and we can get back and answer them for you. So so Sasha, can you start with, how do we get started with?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Well, my first big tip, I have maybe 5 or 6 tips for you, but my main one is research. I would always say to make sure you do as much research as you can. I mean, that is involved going, and I've got Empowering Expat Teachers Facebook group, join that group. I would go on country-specific Facebook groups, ask questions there, go on the TES international forums, ask questions there. That would be my biggest tip. Never feel like you're alone, never feel like any question is too silly. Join those groups, meet people, ask questions, and make connections before you come out. That would be my big thing. And so basically, what I said, so my first tip would be to think about what is the teaching package like. So imagine you want to go abroad, you apply to different schools, you use TES, you use Guardian Jobs, however you may look for jobs. Once you get if you get offered a job abroad, I'd never say accept it straight away. I'd always take some time to sit back and think about it. So if you secure a job abroad, I would always say, thank you so much for that. I look forward to receiving the contract. Never say yes until you've actually got the contract in your hand. And that's sort of one of the reasons actually why I set up the Empowering Expat Teachers forum. I was so lucky, for having lived in Qatar. I had friends and acquaintances who were all around the world. And when I ended in my year in London, when I did my master's, I ended up applying to different countries in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, and I ended up securing 12 jobs. And it's only because I had friends and acquaintances in those countries, I could email and say, is this a good contract? Will this rent allowance cover rent for one bed apartment in a nice part of the city in Singapore, for example, or in Shanghai? Is it normal to have to pay tax on my salary in Shanghai? And I was so invaluable that I was able to ask these questions because I had been abroad for, so many years beforehand. I knew the questions to ask. I knew how to examine the contract correctly. And that's why I set up the forum on Empowering Expat Teachers, to make sure people had a forum they could ask people, not to slander schools, nothing like that, but just to say, is this acceptable for this country? Will this allow me to live a good life? Is this a good, for my year's experience, is this a good salary? So basically things that I've said, when you make sure your international package has a competitive salary, and again, check that out, make sure you ask people what's normal in that country for a person with your year's experience. Check and make sure that you should have furnished accommodation provided or a rent allowance. And again, ask the questions, go to expatistan.com to check the cost of living to make sure it covers a place. And one tip, because I'm a big saver, it's great if you get a housing allowance that's more than the cost of the rent, because then you can save that allowance. That's one tip I always do. Make sure there's medical insurance. And make sure if it's for you, or is it for if you're coming with a family or children. And hopefully it's for everybody, because it's quite expensive to get medical insurance abroad, but just double check that. Also check and see if the school cover your visa costs. Some do, some don't. And you should have an annual flight allowance that you can use to come home. And again, if you're coming out with a family or a husband, spouse, children, make sure does it cover theirs as well. Some packages include shipping and a baggage allowance. Not all, unfortunately. You will find maybe in the Middle East, schools are becoming more and more businesses, and sometimes they're reducing the contracts in order to obviously increase profits. And another thing that would be important for me is on your contract, see how long your probationary period is. And that's the time that you can leave your job without any financial penalties, or the school can decide you're not for them and let you go in that time. But just see how long, make sure it's a decent amount of time to suss out the school, and also check how much notice you must give if you decide to resign, because if you aren't aware of that and you resign, sometimes you'll have to pay the school back like 2 months, 3 months salary. And that's a huge financial penalty. So just double check all those things in your contract.
And I think these tips are great for going to any expat posting.
Absolutely.
This is relevant across the board, whether it's teaching or oil and gas, finance, whatever it is. It's sort of like to check the contract and sort of like the package that you get for going. You get built up in your head that sort of like you're on like the best, like an easy ticket going on an expat job, and it's like, well, nowadays it's a very desirable thing to go abroad, so the packages aren't as great as they
lucrative. Yeah,
they're not as lucrative. So bear that in mind, so that because the financial savings that you maybe have expected that you could save while working abroad, and the tax incentives might not be there anymore. Because I know Dubai has introduced tax recently.
Yeah, the VAT.
I
think Qatar are going to too.
Yeah. So the things that you thought would be like, oh, this will be easy because my friends did it 5-10 years ago, the situation changed. So
absolutely.
That first tip of always checking the contract is really important. And then getting advice from other people who are there locally currently to understand, is that good or is that bad? Because
absolutely,
when you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So tip number 2.
Tip number 2, and again, very specific to expat teachers, but actually also if in any industry, if you have children, make sure your package includes places for children, so that it pays for their schooling. So in terms of a teacher, in the past, schools abroad always provided free places for the children of teachers. it was up to 3. However, nowadays, the way the world is going and keep costs down, sometimes schools either in certain locations don't actually take on families anymore because they're too expensive. They're a lot more expensive than a single person. Or if they do, they limit the places to maybe 2 places, some only 1 free place, and some only pay a portion of the fees. Now, fees abroad are astronomical. They're very, very high. I mean, you're looking at, I think it could be like £30,000 a year at least per child, depending on the school you go to. So if your school do not offer either a free place or almost a fully funded place, it will be extremely difficult on a teaching salary to accept that. And I would also note, do be careful when you're applying in countries where you're going to government schools, like they're public schools. Your children will not be able to go to that school if it's all locals. So if they don't provide a decent amount of money to pay for your children's schooling, it's not really worth your while coming. And I also would say, I know I actually was tuning into your interview with April Remfrey and the Remfrey Educational Consulting, and she mentioned about 10 tips for moving with children with additional needs. And that again is really important. If your children do have additional needs or special education needs, always check the school out and make sure that they can cater for your child, because sometimes if schools are newly set up, they may not have a very effective or very well established department for children with special education needs, and you might be doing your child a huge disservice if you bring them to that school. So always just be aware of that as well.
Oh, that's a bit, and we'll pop the links back to that video.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can check that out if that's something important. But there's loads of tips in there for moving with any kids of any age in there. So definitely check out that video.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I was watching it. Excellent.
Yeah. So what's the next?
The next tip would be always research the school to find out what it's really like. I mean, to be honest, I probably would recommend that even before you apply for the job and interview, although it is good to do interview practice, even if you've no intention of accepting the job. But how to research the school. There are thousands of schools all around the world, and how they treat their teachers is very, very different. So you need to go there fully aware of the issues, because unfortunately, in a lot of cases, the school will not tell you the issues in an interview. So you can't really make a fully informed decision. Yeah. So I would say simply things like Googling the school name, see what kind of reviews come up. I know in the Middle East, Indeed.ie give lots of reviews, or Glassdoor.ie as well.
What are those websites?
Sorry? Yeah, Indeed.ie and Glassdoor.ie. They often have reviews. Another good one would be to, on the Empowering Expat Teachers Facebook, in my group, do pop a question there. Use the search function, see if the school we mentioned before, look at the thread, or pop the question there. I mean, the members are fantastic. If anything has to be said, it'll be privately messaged. So please don't worry about anyone slandering or anything like that. But it's a really great way, because your teachers who actually work there, and we would hope that if this teacher does not enjoy their experience, they wouldn't recommend that you go there. At least they'll give you an honest opinion. There's another great forum called Dave's ESL Cafe International Job Forum. And again, I'm sure we'll put that on the links. It's actually originally started for language schools, but it actually has tons of other schools all around the world, and that's completely free. And again, you can get an idea. I know the International Schools Review, International School Community, they're paid websites, and they are all just reviews of schools, but you can go on and see if your school is there before you pay. So at least you know that you've got some feedback. And again, like I said before, joining those country-specific expat Facebook groups and popping up questions there. And particularly in the UAE, there's a school, there's some websites that you can, it's called Which School Advisor, and it sort of lets you, it's more for parents looking to see what the school is like, but as a teacher, you can get a great insight, because it tells you the demographics of the pupils, so you know if you're going to be teaching locals or British children. It also gives you an idea of like what the strengths are of the school, the weaknesses. And in UAE, there's annual inspections. So if you go to KHDA, you can see the school's inspection. And to be fair, most schools would have that on their website anyway. And that's kind of like the British Ofsted. And again, you can see the strengths, weaknesses. But with some of those where the teacher reviews them personally, do be aware you might get some very bitter or angry teachers who maybe treat feel they've been treated unfairly. So the reviews might be a bit biased, but however, it's good for you to see that and be aware of it before you go.
Definitely. And yeah, it's definitely about doing your research, I think, and being aware of like where to get those sources. And that's where the Relocate Guru platform will be great, because we can couple those resources and location signpost you all to all the best places to get that information, so you can make an informed decision as you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's important regardless, and sort of like and because you're also having to choose which neighborhood is best for you, and like where which type of school. And so what made you decide between, because you were working with a local school rather than an international school, was there anything in particular that made you want to choose one over the other, or is it what was the conditions there?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. For me, my speciality is languages, and my master's is in English language teaching and applied linguistics. So very much honed. My dissertation was honed on Gulf learners of English as a second language. So I always knew I'd be working with locals. So any of the jobs I secured previously, like in Singapore, Shanghai, I was offered a job in Senegal, and they were all with local learners. So because my speciality is in linguistics and teaching like academic English, which I really enjoy. And it's been really fantastic. I mean, you get a really great insight into the culture. And another reason I do my research, and my current school has got one of the best packages in the Middle East, or in UAE as well. So I had done my research as well. So it was like two factors, but I knew I was going to work with locals anyway. So
yeah, definitely sort of like knowing your speciality as well, like will fit in a different school better than another.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's it, again, knowing your strengths, and also doing that research. You can actually see what are the strengths of the school, and you might decide to go in that direction, or however, there's a weakness of the school, but you've got the expertise and you can actually help the school improve that area. And that's something then in your application, your CV and cover letter, you would really highlight that to the school to show how you can help, how you can make things, how you can improve things across the board in certain, so that again is all great for CV and cover letter, to show a school loves nothing more to see that you've actually taken interest. If you can quote something that they've won, or something from their website or their Twitter page that they love that, because it shows you've taken you're passionate about the school, you've really taken an interest. So that's another tip as well, actually, for CVs and cover letters.
I think, yeah, and that's for any of the industry, that's kind of like standards, like you go and research the company that you're applying to.
Yeah, absolutely. Tip number 4, which links in really nicely, Nicole, about checking the nationality of the majority of the students. So for me, English second language specialist, I knew I would be working with locals. However, and I really enjoyed that. That's my dissertation was on that. All my training has been on teaching language to a second language speaker. And so I love that. I know the tips, the tricks. I know how I want my classroom to be. I know how, to improve spoken English across the board. You will find that in a lot of schools, even though they may say that they're British curriculum or their American curriculum, or they've got the word Oxford or America, or something in their title, they may not have British expats or American expats or even English speaking expats as a majority. If you're not aware of that, and you suddenly have only ever taught in the UK or Ireland to all first language speakers, who maybe some are, their parents are very, have high expectations of their behavior and their academics, and suddenly then you're brought to maybe the local school where you've got English second language learners, you've maybe got a different attitude to education, it can be a huge shock. So really, please make sure, and again, you can see that from looking on those websites, or also even looking at the school and looking at the pictures, just to see, like in my school, the pictures of the students in their local dress, doing their local traditional activities. So I couldn't but know that was local students. But it's really important that you check that out, because it can be such a huge change. And if that is the case, if your learners are locals in whatever country you're in, or they're speakers of English as second language, you'll have to adapt your teaching massively. And so if you're not prepared to do that, you're going to have a real struggle. Because you will be a language teacher first, and your subject teacher second. So just really make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, because that can cause a lot of stress and anxiety when you arrive to school and you've got all these resources and all your PowerPoints and everything, and you come in and children can't even say a basic sentence and they're in secondary school, you know, so just be aware of that.
So I think, yeah, because I, like, if I was moving out to Dubai and sort of like put my son into like the British school, I would expect sort of like it be English first language. But after being out there, it's like, well, it's actually very mixed and diverse, which is amazing. And that's the benefit of those things. You get the mix of different cultures. And it's not just like Arabic, it's more like anything from Mandarin, German, Italian. There's a real mix from everywhere. And those have, so English might not be the strongest point, the strongest graphic there. And you have to, and the teachers obviously have to work with people with multiple languages.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a really important one as well. And I would say, actually, add to that, the importance of intercultural understanding. So knowing what is acceptable, what's not. Quick, like, summary of my students, the notion of face is very important in Arab cultures, and actually also in some Asian cultures too. And you can never, if you humiliate somebody in public, like maybe what some teachers might do back in RMVK, where you shout at someone in public, or that does not go down well at all, to humiliate somebody in public. So I usually take them outside, speak to them. There's also certain gestures that aren't acceptable, like ours for saying okay with the, like, we put our finger like that actually means something sexual in Arab culture. Also, sometimes my students, I don't ask them about their female family members in front of other boys, because it's not acceptable to talk about their female family members in front of other men or boys. So there's like sort of things just to be aware. Even how I might dress, I dress very loosely, modestly. I don't necessarily have to, but it's just more of a comfort thing for myself, because their mums, a lot of them wear niqab, they actually cover their faces, and they wear the abaya. And so I think they feel uncomfortable if I come in something very tight. So it's sort of just, you know, little things like that, just to be aware, to really do your research on the culture, to make sure you don't offend children or, you know, colleagues who are different nationality from the get-go. But I mean, it's still a great experience. People have like a negative perception, but we discuss everything in my class. And I always say, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just different. So it's different in my culture, it might be different in yours, but nothing's right or wrong. But it's really important to establish that relationship to get to that level.
And I think it's being open to understanding and learning those cultural nuances, and not just say, oh, my way is the right way. And
absolutely,
like, this is the only way to do it. And I think that with the UAE, it's sort of like got a very large British influence, also than American, and so you can kind of end up in like this little expat bubble.
Yes.
Which kind of almost separates you from the fact that you've got the local things to consider as well. And I remember when I was out there, sort of like going to the Burj Khalifa, and sort of like people were in like little mini skirts and the high heels, and I was just like, what? Where? I was told that I couldn't do that. So it's just very can be very confusing. Like, not knowing what is okay and what isn't.
Absolutely. I think we're very lucky. I think we're tolerant, because I can imagine like 10 years ago that wouldn't have happened. We're very lucky. I mean, like, even during Ramadan, we were able to, you know, things were still open if you wanted to go eat, not in public, but you could still go to different restaurants. And we're pretty free in how we can dress. And, you know, people can practice their religion freely as well. So we are very, very lucky. But you're right. It's just to be aware and not have to come in with the attitude that the West is best, you know, because it's something different. And yeah, like you said, none of that, like, sort of our way is the best and, you know, your way is backwards, nothing like that. So yeah, that's really important, with an open mind and listen to all ideas. And one tip I would say with teachers in particularly, I always have guidelines for discussion in the classroom. You know, so you can't say you, like, all of you do this, you know, no generalizing. I've heard some people, and then show it's your opinion, that's not actual fact. And you just be respectful when we're talking about different religions or different groups of people, just to make sure it doesn't descend into a chaotic, you know, sort of chaotic insult of a certain race or a certain, yeah, exactly. Just to set those guidelines. like any teaching, have your expectations high, tell them from the get-go, so there's absolutely no way. And if they don't abide by that, then they'll be sent out or be punished, or, but just be very careful.
Like discipline in a
Mm.
classroom, because like our ideas of discipline in the UK are different to over there, to different to China, to different to Singapore, and those expectations that are set with the kids from very young. And if you're coming into secondary school, those have been set from really young. So sort of like, how do you set your boundaries in the classroom there? How do
I would say I'm a big believer in like 3 strikes and you're out. So first warning, second warning, goodbye. It can be really exhausting and tiring, but I always think, and this is sort of for any teacher, remember you're the adult in the situation. So I'd never let it get to the level where you're screaming back at the child. If they're screaming in your face and your reaction is to scream back, just to sort of, and I know it's hard because we're human and we can get tired or be under pressure, but remember you're the adult. So no matter how they react, try and stay as calm as you can as possible. And again, that would be something with, particularly as a woman here, I don't want to be screaming and shouting, because that doesn't, sometimes it falls in deaf ears. If they get screamed and shouted a lot at home, they're not going to listen to me in the classroom if I'm screaming. Once I hit a higher pitch, it's like they can't hear me. So I just remain very calm and firm, but just consistent. I think consistency is key, and outline your rules at the beginning, and they can't say they didn't know, because some students have a very strong sense of what's fair and what's not fair. So once you're consistent, you give your warnings and you said, well, I did tell you at the start of the year, this is not acceptable. And a great one, like a general one, do not disrupt learning, because that can be anything. Are you disrupting learning? Yes. Okay, out. So it's those kind of general rules that really, if they do anything, it is disrupting learning. So it's not so specific. But I think the main thing for me with students would be to make that relationship, make that connection. I actually listened to a podcast recently. We shouldn't call it classroom management, we should call it classroom connection. And it's all about the connection. Fear does not work anymore, really, especially when you're abroad. This thing of fear and being worried and what will, oh, we tell my parents I'll be in trouble. That doesn't work anymore. It's really about the connection and sort of illustrating why are these rules in place? How do they help you? Why are they here? How are they helping your learning? But connection, I can't even express. It took me a while to realize that, because I had a very different relationship with my students in Qatar. It came a lot easier than my students here. It's all boys. I wasn't used to all boys. And it took me a good year to realize the importance of having a relationship with them, even if it's to say that they have a nice pencil case, or that I really like how they write, or a nice haircut, just to take some time to make those connections. And then, I talk with my family to them. They see pictures of my family. I give them hints that I bought a place here. This is my place in Spain. Nothing massively overly personal, but just to hopefully they realize that I'm a human as well. We're all humans. Let's treat each other as such. So that for me would making that adult connection, improving that relationship between teacher and student.
So before we go on to the next tip, sort of like, what have been the biggest culture shocks that you've experienced in your time?
Oh, that's a great question. Biggest shocks. I would say, I think when I moved to Dubai, to me, Dubai has always been traditionally less conservative than Qatar. But actually, my parents here, majority of them covered their face, the niqab, the mothers, and none of them did in Qatar. So that I was finding, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I also found, again, not being able, when I asked some students about their sisters, they wouldn't talk about their sister in front of their friends. And that's a respect thing, even though it was nothing to do with like them being married, or it could have been something generic. How many sisters do you have? What's their name? That was it. What's your sister's name? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it in front of my friend. So that was quite unusual. Respect for females, I guess, in their culture. And so that was a big shock. I thought, okay, that's interesting. And so now I always say to them, oh, only if you're comfortable to talk about it. And they're like, oh, yes or no, or whatever. It's just I don't put anyone in an awkward position, because again, the notion of face, they don't want to be embarrassed in public or be ashamed in front of their friends or in front of me. So I say, only if you're comfortable speaking about it. Probably positively in a culture shock way, that was terrible English. A positive culture shock would have been that I can they're very well aware of life and religion outside their own country. So they will ask you lots of questions about every other, religion or culture, or, something from pop culture that I hadn't expected them to know about. So that's quite interesting. They are quite aware of the world. And we've got a subject called Moral Education, where we get to talk about globalism, we get to talk about maybe consumerism and different. And I really love that topic, because you hear their ideas and you realize actually they are very well aware of the world. And they're very clued up on Western affairs or on pop music. And I love how when they ask you questions, things come up. So my students in Qatar all believed that at 18, all our parents collectively kick us out of the house. And they said, Miss, how can your parents do that to you? You turn 18, they kick you out. I said, no, I said, we choose to leave. A lot of us have university that is very far away and we have to move. And they're like, oh, we just thought they kicked you out. I'm like, no. So it's nice to be able to challenge the stereotypes that they have of us, as well as also, it works both ways. So I quite like dispelling that. And I think we're not close to our families. I think, so many sort of negative things they've probably seen, and it's not like that at all. So that's quite been interesting, that they're very open about asking questions and talking about their own religion and their own culture too.
And I think that's great that there's so much inquisitiveness about other cultures, and that's to go both ways.
Absolutely.
And to give that greater awareness, and because then more people can have that a greater understanding. And
well, actually, in the UAE, they've actually set up a ministry of tolerance, and this year is the year of tolerance. So they actually have a ministry to actively promote relationships between expats and Emiratis, which I think is amazing, because we are a huge part of their country. We completely dominate in terms of figures. I think there's only 16% locals and the rest are expats. So actually it's great that they realize, they appreciate the work we do, and they don't want it to be like us and them kind of divide. They realize that we're probably going to be in our country for quite a while. So it's good to make relationships and, support each other and become more tolerant of each other. So I think that's really good stuff.
Really interesting talk at the FIGT conference this year about the word tolerance versus acceptance, and it's
I see.
We always saying, we want to be in a tolerant society, and it's no, we've set the bar too low, sort of, because you can tolerate it, but you need to actually love and accept people to change society and have that people feeling like they belong. So we need to raise the bar from just tolerating each other, fully accepting everyone.
And that's interesting, actually.
It's how do we raise the bar of so it's just really interesting. But it's the more accepting we are of others, sort of the better everything gets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Maybe then I guess I do know eventually, I imagine in the future, my dream would be that I guess there would be enough local people to take over everything, be local teachers and local. So eventually then there won't be so many expats. So maybe it's just as for now. So it's not I guess acceptance is more of a permanent thing, right? So maybe, most expats are temporarily, although some have lived here quite a while, but it's not possible to get a passport, unless you're a billionaire. There's some billionaires here who've have done so much for the economy that they're actually getting special citizenship.
No way, I haven't heard that. I just heard it was a blanket.
No, this year they brought it in. It won't be me anytime soon or anything, but the billionaires and people with special skills, very specific skills that can really help the country or boost the country. Or if you marry a local, I think maybe you might be able to possibly get a passport.
It'll be a very niche group for sure.
It's very, absolutely.
Where are we at? 5?
Yes, we're number 5 now. Yes. Checking the exact location of your school and of your accommodation, because I'm in the UAE, I'm in Dubai, everyone loves Dubai. Everyone dreams of coming to Dubai, living in Dubai, experiencing Dubai lifestyle. So a lot of schools play on that and say their school is in Dubai, but it's actually not. Or in other countries, it might say it's in the city, but it's actually in the suburbs or an hour's train ride away. So always check the location of the school, Google map it. And I always do, and I did this when I was buying my apartment in Spain or when I was looking around, drag the little yellow man and place him in the area and just take a look around, to see what kind of area it is. And that also goes if you've got school accommodation. again, drag the little man, look around. Does it look like a nice area? Are there coffee shops? Is it boarded up? Does it look a bit dangerous? And then you can get an idea of, if it's accommodation, maybe you should take the allowance if you don't like. Although I have to say, in your first year, it's a good idea to take the school accommodation because you've got everything set up for you. Your electricity set up, and it's so much easier. For the first year, I would take the school accommodation if they provide it. But also Google Map distance between your accommodation and your school, and just to see how far it is. I had a friend who had an unfortunate experience. Her school was in Dubai, and her school accommodation was in Ajman, which is actually 2 Emirates away. There's 7 Emirates in the UAE. Yeah.
God.
It actually took her about an hour and 40 minutes one way, and then an hour and 40 minutes, depending on traffic. And that was shocking, So, and that there's no need for that really, because there's a reasonable accommodation in Dubai. There was no need for that. That was, I think, the school trying to be extremely penny pinching. Sorry. And so always check that, and always check the traffic around 4 or 5 in the evening. See how long it would take you to drive, just for yourself. Because that, for example, that would be a really helpful factor if you've been offered 2 jobs in UAE, and that could be a deciding factor. Because you don't be spending your life commuting all the time. Yeah.
And from when I was out there, like the traffic is really bad. Like I booked a hotel like that said it was in Dubai, but it wasn't. It was in Sharjah.
This is I'm saying exactly, because Sharjah is the next emirate. Yeah.
And it's like, and when I looked on the Google Maps, like, oh, that looks pretty close. And it's like the hotel says sort of like, oh, it's a 30-minute like free shuttle bus transfer to the Dubai mall. So oh, that would be really cool. Sort of like an hour little free bus. It's like, that's fine. Get there. It's like it's miles away, and it took an hour and a half to 2 hours to get into town. And it's like that is not what was out at the time.
Absolutely, and that is shocking. But unfortunately, that's more and more places do that. And in the past, yes, Sharjah. When I actually moved here 3 years ago, if I went when there's no traffic, I could get from Dubai to Sharjah in 25 minutes. If I wanted to go to, there's a really cool souk there, like a marketplace. But now it's impossible. I have friends, colleagues who commute, and they're taking at least an hour, 10 minutes. And that's they actually leave at like 6 or 5:30 in the morning to beat the traffic. So you're absolutely right. And to market as Dubai and say like that's, and also Sharjah is actually a dry emirate, so there's no alcohol there. So again, that could affect your social life if you had to live there. So just to be aware of that.
Don't try sneaking things across the border because they look out for.
Yes, quite strict. Yeah. And also, if you don't be spending all your salary in taxis, if you are stuck in Georgia, or in another emirate. So yes, that's interesting. You had that experience. That's frustrating.
Abu Dhabi was like a fair trek away, but I've been in Abu Dhabi, and that's lovely as well. But yeah, I hadn't been to Sharjah before, so it was a good experience to sort of like try another emirate that I hadn't been to. So that was cool from that perspective.
Yeah.
But if you go in not expecting that and you're living there long term, it could be quite an impact. But that would be the same regardless of any country that you go to. That would be like going to New York and then living in New Jersey or something. Not really
absolutely
required to get to Manhattan. So I think that's sensible no matter where you go. It's just check on Google Maps of like where you are and like the distance, and check the commuting times of what that is actually
absolutely like. Yeah, so important. And then the last tip number 6. So imagine you get the job, you're delighted with the package. In order for you to proceed with your work visa, you need to get your documents attested. And so those documents would usually be a degree, teaching certificate, maybe your birth cert, a marriage certificate if you're married. It could be your background check, like your criminal check. So there's like a whole range of documents to get that have 2 stages. They have to be brought to a solicitor usually, or a public notary, to say that yes, they're legal. And then they usually have to be brought to it would be the Foreign Commonwealth Office in the UK. In Ireland it's the Department of Foreign Affairs, and they have to get verified there. And then you send them to the embassy that wherever you're going to, the Chinese embassy in your home country, or the UAE embassy, the Qatari embassy, and they have to be verified there. And then you usually scan them, send them to your school, and then bring them with you so they can see them in person. When I first did it, honestly, it was really, I guess I was quite a while ago, it was actually very reasonable. But now I see things have gotten a bit more expensive, especially if you decide to go through an agency or company to do it for you. They seem to charge in the hundreds of pounds. I know for me, again, if you do everything in time, so just a little quick note, schools abroad start advertising from the like December beforehand. It's so much earlier than what we're used to. So please keep an eye. If you have even any inkling you want to go abroad, start looking from December. Two good friends of mine have got jobs. They're moving from Dubai to Kuala Lumpur, and they actually secured their jobs. And these are the top two schools in Malaysia. They had their jobs done and dusted by December. When some people haven't even had the resignation at that point. So just be aware of that. But the idea is that if you start early and get accepted early, you're giving yourself time. So you don't actually have to use one of these agencies to speed things up that cost you hundreds and hundreds of pounds. It's really easy to do it yourself. So, but I would say, because it costs per document, I would say always check with the HR to see which documents exactly you need to get it tested, because it's quite an expensive process and there's no point in testing things that the school don't want. So just make sure you have the exact name and number of documents that you want. And then, it's pretty straightforward from that. It's like those 3 stages. So your solicitor or notary public, and again, that price is negotiable. Not every solicitor is a fixed amount. If you've got a friend who's a solicitor, they can do it for free, or like a brother or a sister. And then the next stage, you pay a fee, and you usually pay include a stamped address envelope so that the Department of Foreign Affairs or the Commonwealth Office can send it back to you. And then when I was living in the UK in London, I just went to the embassy. I found out the opening times, but do be careful. I know some embassies don't accept card. Some only accept card. So make sure, and they're such short opening hours, I would get there as early as you can and know everything. For example, in the Qatari embassy, the Saudi embassy, the Emirati or the UAE embassy, Kuwaiti embassy, etc. During Ramadan, they're actually on Ramadan hours, like here, where they only work, or they might be closed completely. If it's Eid break, it's like sort of like the Muslim Christmas, they will be closed. But that we might have no idea because we're in a country where it's not widely known. So just always keep an eye on their website and make sure your journey is not in vain. Make sure they're open, their timings, how do you pay. I call them up beforehand just to clarify everything, just to make sure you don't go there and they're closed. But because usually it's the same day. You get it done. They tell you to come back an hour or two, and you go back and collect them. It's a pretty straightforward process in person.
Yeah, so it's quite a straightforward process, but it's just being aware of it.
Yeah,
making sure you have everything and being organised in beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. Always call them. I always verify. Sometimes websites aren't updated. Just make sure you've got all your documents. They may need photographic ID. They might need a contract from your school. Make sure you have every single thing ready. Yeah.
So it's like have a folder ready with everything you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it takes one thing and that ends up causing you the stress, that you do not need. So just check everything.
Fantastic. Okay, and final tip.
Oh, that actually was my final. Well, can I give a final tip? Join the Empowering Expat Teachers community. We'd be delighted to have you if you're an expat teacher. I definitely recommend joining that. It's a lovely forum. Everyone's so helpful. We have about 7,500 members at the moment for teachers all around the world. If you're a future expat teacher, if you're a current expat teacher, and I also have a blog, www.circlecoil.com. I have lots of articles about, document attestation, how to choose a good location for you, and how to save when you're abroad, how to find accommodation when you're abroad, just little things to do with. It's sort of got, I guess, the Middle Eastern feel to it, but there's a lot of tips that you can use across the board. I also have an Instagram, which I'm trying to get into because I'm really not an Instagram kind of person, but I'm really trying my best. It's circlecoil_EET for Empowering Expat Teachers, EET. Follow me there. And I also have something very exciting, a workshop coming up in August. There'll be details of that on the Empowering Expat Teachers Facebook group. There'll be like a different workshop series to empower you on a personal, professional and financial level. I also have a book as well. It's currently on sale on Amazon, How to Be an Empowered Expat Teacher, Personally, Professionally and Financially. Because for me, the 3 are so important. Financially, of course, but also you need to be happy. So on a personal level, you need to find your tribe, you need to make sure your job, you like your environment. And then professionally, to make sure you're, job suits your skills and it's the kind of school you want to be in, because if you're lacking one of those, you're not going to be happy. So it's good to be on all three levels.
Fantastic. So we'll pop all the links.
Thank you.
Has shared so many amazing resources and websites and links and stuff. So we're going to pop them all in the comments below. But she's also written a fantastic blog for us, which will be on the RelocateGuru blog page, which we'll link to again below, so that you can get all these resources and go through them and decide if being an expat is something for you and how to make the most of it. So thank you so much, Sasha.
No, thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And yeah, so join in the conversation. I'd love to hear any of your comments and questions in the comments below. And yeah, so have a wonderful day, everyone. And thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. All right then. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Download the app today and join our community to feel at home anywhere.